She walked into a luxury store on her 76th birthday and was told she didn't belong. What the staff didn't know? She was Elon Musk's mother. Humiliated but silent, she left in the rain, but that moment would spark a worldwide movement. What Elon did next didn't just shake an industry, it changed everything. Before we continue this incredible story, let us know where you're watching from. If you enjoy stories like this, subscribe to the channel, because tomorrow we have another inspiring story you won't want to miss. The morning air in Paris carried the delicate scent of blooming chestnuts and distant patisserie sugar. But for May Musk, the city felt strangely silent, almost as if it were holding its breath. It was her 76th birthday, and though her silver hair was windswept from a restless transatlantic flight and her black travel shoes scuffed from hours of walking, she had dressed with quiet care. A soft navy sweater hugged her slender frame, her pants pressed as neatly as the cramped hotel iron could manage. There were no diamonds around her neck, no designer logos stitched into her seams. Just the calm dignity of a woman who had seen storms and survived them all. She walked alone down Avenue Montaigne, the upscale heart of Parisian luxury, where storefronts gleamed like glass cathedrals and handbags cost more than most people's rent. Today, she wasn't looking for extravagance. She was simply hoping to mark the occasion with a small indulgence, a token of self-love after decades of self-sacrifice. She'd raised 3 children alone, juggled 5 jobs, built a career in dietetics, and, improbably, even launched a modeling career in her 60s. She'd taught her children resilience and worth. But today, she wanted something for herself. Just a scarf, perhaps, or a delicate pair of gloves. Nothing ostentatious, just something beautiful. Her eyes found the storefront of Belle Paris's most elite luxury boutique. It looked like something from a dream: gold handles, crystal lighting, and inside displays curated like museum exhibits. The name alone conjured images of royalty and film stars. She paused outside to check her reflection in the window, her short silver hair windblown but dignified, a face creased with years and laughter. She gave herself a gentle nod. "Just the right thing to buy myself a birthday gift," she murmured with a faint smile. As she approached the entrance, the golden handles glinting like a prize, a tall man in a black suit stepped into her path. His posture was stiff with importance, his eyes scanning her like a barcode. The name tag on his chest read Vincent. His slicked back hair and pencil-thin mustache gave him the air of someone who believed power came from standing at a door. "Good afternoon," May said, her voice light and hopeful. But Vincent didn't move. His eyes flicked to her worn shoes, then her plain sweater. "I'm sorry, madame," he said with forced politeness. "We are closed for a private event." May blinked in surprise. Just moments earlier, she had seen a couple walk in, dripping in Chanel and Cartier. The man still carried shopping bags from other high-end boutiques. "But those people," she began, pointing toward the glass door, where the couple now laughed over sparkling flutes of champagne. "They are on the guest list," Vincent interrupted, his smile curdled into condescension. "Special invitation only. I just wanted to buy a small gift. It's my birthday today," she said softly, still unsure this was really happening. Vincent's gaze hardened. "Perhaps another store would be more appropriate. May I suggest the tourist shops by the river?" For a split second, May froze. The words stung more than she expected. They transported her back in time, back to being a single mother in South Africa, clutching grocery coupons and being judged by her shoes in checkout lines. She wasn't May Musk, international model and the mother of a billionaire. In Vincent's eyes, she was nobody. Inside the store, a young employee with curly dark hair and a name tag that read Zara watched the exchange unfold through a row of glistening scarves. Her heart twisted in shame. She'd seen Vincent do this before, turning people away who didn't fit the mold of wealth. But something about this woman, this quiet, silver-haired stranger who refused to crumble, made it unbearable to stay silent. Still, fear kept Zara rooted. This job paid her rent. her younger brother's school tuition. She looked away, biting her lip. Outside, May straightened her spine. She wouldn't plead, she wouldn't cause a scene. "I understand," she said, voice even. "Thank you for your time." As she turned to leave, the skies opened. A single raindrop struck her cheek, indistinguishable from the tear she didn't let fall. She didn't run. She walked slowly, steadily, her head held high. The echo of her footsteps on the wet sidewalk was the only sound that followed her. Back inside, Vincent chuckled smugly as he returned to his post. "Some people," he muttered, "think they can just walk in here dressed like that." Zara said nothing, but something inside her shifted. May returned to her hotel alone, soaked but composed. She hung her wet clothes by the radiator and wrapped herself in the hotel's thin white robe. She didn't call her children. She didn't cry. Not yet. But as she looked out at the shimmering city lights, blurred now by both rain and memory, she felt something deeper than sadness. She felt invisible. And somewhere across the world, her son was about to find out. The soft glow of computer monitors illuminated Elon Musk's office in the quiet hours just before dawn. Most of his staff were still asleep or on their way to work, but Elon had already been up for hours, buried in technical reports about Falcon 10 fuel efficiency and Tesla's next-gen battery prototypes. Yet his mind, usually laser-focused on space and sustainability, was elsewhere. It lingered on a late-night video call that had started like so many others. His mother's face lighting up the screen, her voice cheery but thinly stretched. "Happy birthday, Mom," he'd greeted, a tired grin spreading across his face. "Did you treat yourself today?" May had smiled, but something in her eyes faltered. She waved a hand, dismissive, her voice brushing past the moment like a feather over thorns. "Oh, I had a lovely walk, a long lunch, nothing too exciting. Just Paris things." But Elon knew that smile. It was the same smile she wore when she skipped meals to feed him and his siblings, the same expression she used to wear when she told him everything was fine, after debt collectors had knocked on their door. So he had leaned forward, lowering his voice. "Mom, what happened?" There was a pause, long enough for the silence to thicken. "It's silly," May finally admitted. "I went to a luxury store. Bel-Air, I think it's called. I wanted to buy myself something small. A scarf, maybe. Just something beautiful." She hesitated, then continued in a voice carefully devoid of bitterness. "The doorman wouldn't let me in, said the store was closed for a private event, but I saw others go in, well-dressed people, people who looked the part." Elon's face darkened. "What did he say to you?" "He suggested I try the tourist shops," she said with a brittle laugh, waving it off as if it were just a passing anecdote. "It's nothing, really. Don't make a fuss." But Elon was already staring past the screen, his jaw clenched. The muscles in his face tightened, like they had when he'd been a boy watching his mother face insult after insult from landlords and loan officers. "What was his name?" "Vincent, I think. But Elon, really? It's nothing. Please don't do anything dramatic." He nodded slowly, but May knew that look. It wasn't rage. It was focus. Precision. The calm before a storm that could disrupt entire industries. She had seen that same look when he told her, at 19, that he was going to change the future of transportation. The same intensity when he decided to colonize Mars. And now it had returned. "I promise I won't do anything to embarrass you," he said softly. "Just trust me." They talked a few minutes longer, May trying to guide the conversation toward lighter things, her upcoming photo shoot, Paris museums, the croissants she'd had that morning. Elon nodded and smiled, but his mind was already miles ahead, plotting lines and levers. The moment the call ended, he didn't hesitate. He didn't sip his coffee. He turned to his assistant's desk and pressed the intercom. "Theo," he said, voice sharp with purpose, "I need everything you can find on a luxury boutique in Paris. It's called Bel-Air. Ownership, valuation, building lease status, everything." Theo's voice crackled through, groggy but alert. "Right away, sir. Is this..." SpaceX related. No, Elon replied. It's personal. By the time the first rays of sunlight crept over the Los Angeles skyline, Elon had everything he needed. Belir was owned by an aging French conglomerate called Lux Heritage, and their flagship store, yes, the one on Avenue Montaigne, was leased, not owned. That detail was all Elon needed to act. Call the property owners, he told Theo. Make them an offer. I don't care what the valuation is, I want it. Theo hesitated. Sir, you want to buy the building? Elon turned from the window, eyes glinting. No, I want to buy the message they sent my mother. And I'm going to rewrite it. At that moment, the most powerful man in tech wasn't thinking about satellites or stock prices. He was thinking about a doorman who had humiliated the woman who once walked barefoot to save on bus fare for her children. And as the calls went out across continents and time zones, a quiet shift began, one that would turn an act of small-minded rejection into a movement that would redefine what true luxury really means. At Belir, the day began as any other. Opulent displays polished to perfection, floral arrangements rotated by the hour, and background music so elegantly selected it was more felt than heard. Yet beneath the glossy surface, something was different. Tension hung in the air like expensive perfume, faint but impossible to ignore. Zara had just stepped through the employee entrance, shrugging off her coat when she noticed it. Clusters of staff whispered in corners, their voices hushed, their eyes flicking toward the manager's office. Even the ever-confident Vincent, Belier's senior doorman, looked rattled. That alone was enough to make Zara pause. "What's going on?" she asked Philippe, a security guard who rarely spoke more than a few words before his first espresso. Philippe leaned closer. Madame Dupont got a call this morning. She locked herself in her office. Then 15 minutes later, she stormed out and said there was a change in ownership. Zara blinked. Wait? Belir was sold? He nodded grimly. And no one knows to whom. It hit her like cold air. Belir had been a fixture on Avenue Montaigne for over a century. It wasn't just a store, it was an institution. To Zara, who had grown up in a working-class suburb and clawed her way into this rarefied world, Belir represented something unreachable she had finally touched, if only at the edges. Just then, the doors to Madame Dupont's office swung open. The manager, usually composed, aloof, almost statuesque, looked shaken. Her heels clicked sharply as she entered the central salon and clapped twice for attention. Everyone, eyes on me. The chatter fell instantly silent. This morning I received confirmation that Belir's ownership has changed hands. The building and the store both sold, effective immediately. A collective gasp rippled through the staff. To whom? Marcel from the jewelry department asked, his voice trembling slightly. I don't know, Madame Dupont admitted, her mouth a thin line. The buyer has not revealed their identity. What I do know is this. Belir will remain open. For now, we are to proceed with business as usual. The instructions were clear, but the unease only grew. The unspoken fear passed through them like static. What if the new owner had no interest in maintaining Belir's legacy? What if jobs were lost? What if change was coming? Vincent predictably scoffed. It's probably just another investor group. These things happen. People love throwing money at luxury. No one is going to change what makes Belir. Belir. Zara noticed the way he said it, like Belir was an exclusive club and he was its gatekeeper. She thought again of the silver-haired woman he had turned away just 3 days earlier. There had been something dignified in that woman's stance, even as she was rejected, something that haunted Zara still. Throughout the morning, rumors swirled like champagne bubbles. One employee claimed the buyer was a Russian billionaire with ties to the fashion world. Another whispered it was a rival French fashion house trying to swallow Belir whole. But the most persistent rumor, the one that spread like wildfire, was that the new owner was coming to the store, not someday, soon. By lunchtime, the atmosphere had shifted from curiosity to panic. "What if they shut us down?" someone muttered behind a cosmetics counter. "What if they fire everyone and bring in their own team?" another whispered in the staff lounge. Zara, meanwhile, couldn't shake her unease. Something didn't feel random about this. It wasn't just a corporate acquisition. It felt targeted, specific. That evening, Madame Dupont summoned the staff once more. "The new owner has sent notice," she announced, voice tight. "They will be visiting Baylor in 3 days for a formal event, a full-scale gathering, media, designers, VIPs. Everyone is expected to attend. Formal dress." The room fell into stunned silence. "Do we know who they are yet?" asked Marcel. Madame Dupont hesitated. "No, but I've been informed they have plans." That single word sent a chill down Zara's spine. Plan. The kind of word that could mean opportunity or upheaval. And as the staff filed out to prepare for the biggest night in Belier's recent history, one question echoed louder than any. Who had bought Belier, and what were they planning to do? Zara returned to the scarf display, her hands trembling slightly as she folded a silk square worth more than her month's rent. The silver-hailed woman's quiet disappointment still flickered in her memory. Something told her that moment, small, ignored, brushed aside, was more important than anyone at Belier yet realized. And deep inside her, a tiny voice whispered, this wasn't just a change in ownership. It was the beginning of a reckoning. 3 days later, under the soft, golden light of a Parisian afternoon, May Musk sat alone at the breakfast table in her modest hotel room overlooking the Seine. Her silver hair was still damp from the morning shower, and a thin robe wrapped around her shoulders as she stirred her coffee absent-mindedly, lost in thought. The sting of rejection at Belier had softened, but it hadn't disappeared. She had tucked the memory away like she had done with so many others throughout her life. But even now, the voice of that doorman, Vincent, echoed in her mind. Perhaps another store would be more appropriate for your budget. Her gaze wandered to the narrow street below, where Parisians hurried past with baguettes under their arms and scarves draped just so. It should have felt romantic, poetic even, but today the city felt distant, like a beautiful place she could visit, but not quite belong to. A knock at the door interrupted her reverie. She opened it cautiously to find a sharply dressed hotel concierge holding a silver tray. Resting on it was a single cream-colored envelope, thick and elegant, embossed with her name in precise golden script. "For you, Madame Musk," the concierge said with a respectful nod. "Delivered by courier this morning." "Merci," she replied, frowning slightly as she took the envelope. There was no return address, no sender's mark. Back inside, she sat down and carefully opened it. The paper inside was heavier than expected, expensive, intentional. Her eyes scanned the words. "You are cordially invited to an exclusive event at Belier, Avenue Montaigne, this evening at 7 p.m. Formal attire requested. With honor, the proprietor." She stared at the card in stunned silence. Belier? Was this some cruel joke? No. The font was refined, the invitation unmistakably real. Her first thought was Elon. Only he would have the reach, the speed, the sheer audacity to arrange something like this. But why? And how? She picked up her phone, hesitated, then set it down again. If Elon had done this, confronting him now would only invite more secrets. If there was one thing she had learned over the years, it was that when Elon was scheming, he never revealed the full picture until the curtain was ready to rise. She opened her suitcase, rifling through her limited wardrobe. She hadn't packed for galas or fashion statements, just comfort and practicality. But nestled between her blouses was one black dress, simple yet timeless, a piece she had brought just in case. She held it up to the light, then glanced at the invitation once more. Formal attire requested. With a wry smile, she whispered to herself, "Well, I guess I'm going back to Belier after all." Across town, Belier was a hive of movement and whispered instructions. The doors were closed to the public, but inside, The space buzzed like a theater before curtain call. Workers laid down a crimson carpet, catering staff arranged trays of champagne and hors d'oeuvres, and white-gloved attendants polished the displays to a mirror shine. Soft lighting gave everything a golden sheen, as if the entire store were glowing from within. Zara had been on her feet for hours, meticulously arranging the scarf displays near the entrance. She'd been given that task personally by Madame Dupont, perhaps as a reward, perhaps as a test. Either way, Zara had accepted it with silent gratitude. Yet her mind raced as she worked. The mystery owner would be arriving tonight. Rumors had reached a fever pitch. A Saudi prince, a tech mogul, even a reclusive French fashion heiress? None of it made sense. And the fact that they were hosting the event instead of the new owner announcing from afar? That was even more bizarre. Vincent, meanwhile, stood at his usual post by the main entrance, adjusting his black tie in the reflection of the glass. His usual smug composure was fraying. Every movement tonight had to be perfect. He'd heard whispers too, big changes, new policies. Possibly a total rebranding, but he brushed it off. Beeler is sacred. No one would dare change what it stands for. As the hour approached, the staff donned their formal uniforms, sleek black for the men, elegant black dresses for the women, and took their positions. Spotlights lit the entrance. The red carpet shimmered like velvet under the soft glow of chandeliers. At exactly 6:55 p.m., a sleek black taxi pulled up in front of Belir. From the back seat emerged a silver-haired woman in a simple, elegant black dress. May Musk stood at the foot of the red carpet, her heels clicking softly as she approached the gold-handled door. She paused just long enough for the doorman to see her. Vincent turned, smiling automatically, then froze. He recognized her. The woman he had turned away just days before now looked like royalty, not because of her clothes but because of the way she carried herself. Calm, composed, undeniable. "Welcome to Belir, madame," he said with a bow, voice trembling slightly. May met his gaze. How nice to be welcomed this time. And with that, she stepped through the doors of the very place that once rejected her, unaware that the true drama had only just begun, and that her presence tonight was not a coincidence, but the keystone of a plan years in the making. As May Musk stepped into Belir, she was momentarily taken aback by how different the store felt. Not in its physical form, which was still draped in silk and gold, but in the atmosphere. Something had shifted. The air no longer crackled with quiet condescension, but hummed with anticipation. Crystal chandeliers sparkled overhead. An orchestra played softly in the corner, the strains of a classical waltz winding through the aisles like a secret being whispered. Staff members moved with deliberate grace, their eyes filled with both curiosity and nerves. May glanced around, uncertain of where to go, until a young woman with dark curly hair approached her. "Zara." "Madame Musk," Zara said softly, her voice filled with emotion. "Welcome. It's an honor to have you here tonight." May blinked in surprise. She didn't expect to be recognized, certainly not by name, but there was a look in Zara's eyes, sincere, remorseful, respectful, that told her this young woman knew exactly who she was and what had happened. "Thank you," May replied warmly, accepting the gesture with a small nod. "The store looks beautiful." "So do you," Zara replied, before quickly stepping aside. "Please, enjoy the evening." May wandered slowly, glancing at the guests, fashion editors, designers, Parisian elites, even a few familiar faces from magazine covers and tech conferences. Everyone seemed to be speculating, whispering. No one knew who the new owner was. No one had any clue what was coming. And then, the music stopped. The lights dimmed. A hush fell across the store, like a curtain lowering in a grand theater. All eyes turned to the sweeping staircase at the center of the room. Spotlights suddenly flared, illuminating the top step. A figure emerged, tall and unmistakable even before he spoke. The crowd gasped. A few people audibly whispered his name. May's breath caught in her throat. Elon, dressed in a sleek black suit, Elon Musk stood at the top of the staircase with the calm composure of a man who had walked through rocket launches and billion-dollar boardrooms. But tonight, he wore something different. Purpose, fire, and something deeply personal in his eyes. Zara's heart skipped a beat. Madame Dupont nearly dropped her glass of champagne. Vincent, standing by the door, turned pale, as if the world had suddenly flipped upside down. Elon descended slowly, each step echoing in the silence. At the base of the stairs, he picked up a glass of champagne from a passing tray, though he didn't sip it. He turned to the crowd and spoke, his voice clear, steady, and filled with quiet gravity. "Good evening. Thank you all for coming." There was no scripted charm in his tone, no business jargon, just a man standing in front of strangers with something to say. You're probably wondering why someone who builds rockets and electric cars now owns a luxury store in Paris. The answer is personal. He paused, scanning the room until his gaze found May. Their eyes met. She gave the faintest shake of her head, as if to say, "Don't make this about me." But Elon simply smiled and continued. 3 days ago, my mother, May Musk, came here to buy herself a birthday gift. It was her 76th birthday. She wanted something small, something special, a token of joy. He let the silence hang in the air. She was turned away at the door. Gasps rippled through the room. The staff froze. Vincent shifted uncomfortably. Not because the store was closed, not because it was full, but because someone decided she didn't look rich enough. Now all eyes darted to the entrance. Some guests whispered. Others glanced at Vincent, who now looked like he might melt into the floor. "But this isn't a story about a rude doorman," Elon said, glancing at his mother again. "This is a story about what luxury should mean, and what it's become." May's heart swelled and sank at the same time. She had asked him not to make a scene, and yet, this wasn't a scene, it was a reckoning. In my line of work, I build things to solve problems, cars to reduce emissions, rockets to reach Mars. But this is a different kind of mission, one closer to home. Elon lifted his glass as if to toast. It's time we redefined luxury, not as something that separates people, but as something that lifts them up. The crowd remained silent, hanging on every word. He turned toward the grand display behind him, where the familiar Belier logo had been subtly altered. Now, 3 new words gleamed in gold beneath the brand name. Quality, craft, community. Elon raised an eyebrow and added, "Welcome to the new Belier." At that moment, the orchestra resumed. Waiters circulated once more. The spell seemed broken, yet something deeper had been stirred in the hearts of everyone present. May stepped forward, joining her son near the stairs. "You promised you wouldn't do anything dramatic," she whispered with a half-smile. "I lied," he replied, then leaned in closer, but only for the right reason. And with that, Belier was no longer just a luxury store. It had become a stage for a revolution, one that would ripple far beyond the polished walls of Avenue Montaigne. The next morning, the gilded doors of Belier remained shut to the public, yet inside the air buzzed with tension. Staff gathered in the sleek, modern back room where floor-to-ceiling mirrors reflected anxious faces. Zara stood near the corner, arms folded tightly across her chest. Madame Dupont paced in her heels, her usual poise replaced by tight, restrained movements. And at the back, seated alone, Vincent stared blankly at his polished shoes, the confident mask he'd worn for years nowhere in sight. At precisely 10 a.m., the glass door opened and Elon Musk stepped into the room. His presence alone seemed to rearrange the molecules of the air, cool, measured, but with a storm beneath the surface. Beside him stood Theo, his assistant, clutching a sleek tablet. Every staff member straightened, conversations halted. They had been expecting change, but not like this. Not this soon. Not from the man who had stood atop the grand staircase the night before and declared a new definition of luxury. "Thank you for coming," Elon began, his voice calm but with an undercurrent of power. "I know many of you have questions, perhaps even fears, That's understandable. Today I want to be transparent. We are not just adjusting this store, we are transforming it. He paused, allowing the weight of that word, transforming, to sink in. For over a century, Belair has stood for luxury, craftsmanship, exclusivity. Two of those words will remain, one will not. Gasps echoed softly. Vincent visibly tensed. Madame Dupont's expression stiffened. From this day forward, Belair will still represent the highest quality. We will still showcase the finest products, but the era of exclusion ends now. Zara's heart leapt, her breath catching in her throat. Let me be clear, Elon continued, eyes sweeping the room. I'm not here to punish. I'm here to create something better, something lasting, that begins with a simple idea. Everyone who walks through our doors deserves dignity. He turned to Theo, who tapped the tablet. A nearby screen lit up with 3 bold words in gold. Welcome, always, unconditionally. The room was silent, as if everyone had collectively forgotten how to breathe. This is not just branding, Elon said. This is policy. He faced the group head-on. From now on, any employee who makes a customer feel unwelcome based on their appearance, what they wear, how much they seem likely to spend, their race, age, or background, will not be terminated. The staff blinked in confusion. Not terminated? They will instead, Elon said slowly, be temporarily reassigned. A murmur rippled through the room. To where? Someone asked. To serve in homeless shelters, community kitchens, and public clinics, Elon said. For a minimum of 1 month, you will learn firsthand what dignity means when people have nothing. You will witness how rare it is for someone in worn shoes to be treated with kindness. You will not lecture, you will listen. Now the silence was heavier. A few looked stunned. Vincent looked sick. This isn't about humiliation, Elon clarified. It's about education. Transformation only works when it begins within. Madame Dupont stepped forward, clearly rattled. Mr. Musk, surely you can't be serious. I've never been more serious, Elon replied sharply, his eyes never wavering. A luxury brand should never forget that its true value lies in how it treats those with the least. I'm not interested in window dressing. I want a revolution in behavior. Zara swallowed hard. It was happening. The very thing she had dreamed about in hushed conversations, in silent hopes. Someone was actually doing it. And to lead this culture shift, Elon continued, turning to the room, I've appointed someone with first-hand experience. Someone who not only witnessed the injustice but had the courage to reflect, to speak up. His eyes landed on Zara. Zara blinked. Me? Yes, Elon said with a small smile. You'll head what we're calling the Dignity Committee. You'll train staff, review incidents, create safe systems for feedback and correction. Madame Dupont blinked, stunned. Zara stepped forward slowly, her heart racing. She hadn't expected this responsibility, this trust. But as Elon looked at her, and as she saw May Musk standing silently at the back of the room, watching her with a proud, gentle expression, Zara found her voice. I won't let you down, she said quietly. No one deserves to be made to feel small just for walking through a door. Elon nodded. Exactly. At the back, Vincent raised his hand. Everyone turned. I want to volunteer, he said hoarsely, for the reassignment, not because I was caught, but because I was wrong. For years. Even Madame Dupont's eyebrows lifted. Elon regarded him for a long moment. Are you ready to be uncomfortable? Yeah. Good. You'll start tomorrow. And with that, Elon turned to the screen and tapped it off. Ladies and gentlemen, he said, welcome to the new Belair. A new chapter had begun, and not just for a store, but for an entire industry. The morning of Belair's grand reopening dawned with unexpected sunshine. The rain of the past few days washed away as if Paris itself was making room for something new. Outside the luxury storefront, a red carpet stretched across the sidewalk like a ribbon waiting to be cut. and a soft golden glow emanated from within the towering glass windows. Press crews began arriving early, setting up cameras across the street, jostling for position. Rumors had already spread through the fashion world and beyond. Elon Musk's mysterious transformation of Belir was no longer a secret, but no one truly knew what was coming. Not yet. Inside the store, staff hurried to put the final touches on displays. Zara adjusted the centerpiece scarf arrangement near the grand staircase, her fingers trembling with a mixture of nerves and pride. This wasn't the same Belir she had walked into just weeks ago, afraid to speak up, watching injustice unfold in silence. No, this was a new place, one she had helped shape. Her badge now read, Zara M., Director of Community Engagement. It felt surreal. Vincent, freshly returned from his month of community service at a Paris homeless shelter, stood near the main entrance. His posture was different now, not rigid with self-importance, but grounded, humbled. Even his suit, though still immaculate, no longer seemed like armor. It simply fit the man he was becoming. He caught Zara's eye and gave a small nod of gratitude. She nodded back. No words were needed. At 10 a.m. sharp, the crowd outside was buzzing. Among the guests were fashion icons, CEOs, teachers, firefighters, and single parents, community members who had received the newly issued Baylor Community Access Card. Unlike the past, there were no velvet ropes dividing the crowd, no special lines for the deserving. Everyone stood together. Mae Musk emerged from a black car at the curb, wearing a tailored navy blue dress and the very first scarf ever sold from Belir's new community collection. She looked radiant, dignified, and strong. The cameras clicked furiously as she stepped forward, flanked by Elon on one side and Zara on the other. Behind them stood Madame Dupont and Vincent, no longer the guardians of exclusivity, but witnesses to transformation. Elon leaned close to his mother. "Are you ready?" Mae smiled, her eyes moist. "I've been waiting 76 years for this." With a ceremonial flourish, she raised the golden scissors and cut the ribbon. Cheers erupted. The doors opened wide, not just to a store, but to a new philosophy of worth. Vincent was the first to greet customers. He bowed slightly and offered each person the same respectful welcome. "Bonjour," and "Welcome to Belir. We're honored to have you." Zara guided a young woman through the entrance. Elena, a nursing student who had saved for 6 months to afford something from the community collection. She wore simple jeans and a modest blouse, her hands shaking as she clutched her access card. In the past, she might have never dared cross the threshold. Today, she was the first customer to step inside. "I'd like to see the scarves," Elena whispered. Zara smiled. "Let's find the one that feels made just for you." Upstairs in the newly opened community lounge, a retired schoolteacher tried on silk gloves, tears in her eyes. A firefighter and his wife shared a quiet moment as she chose her first luxury handbag. A young boy tugged at his mother's sleeve, holding up a sleek wallet he wanted to gift her. Reporters moved discreetly through the store, trying to capture the essence of what was happening. But it was more than an event. It was a shift in energy, a hum of possibility, kindness, and connection, replacing the cold hush of exclusivity that had once haunted these marble floors. Downstairs, Elon stood off to the side, watching silently. He wasn't there to take center stage, but to observe, to witness what his mother had inspired and what his team, especially Zara, Vincent, and Madame Dupont, had brought to life. Theo approached with a quiet update. "Sales are already 25% above our previous best opening." Elon nodded, barely reacting. "That's not what you're measuring, is it?" Theo asked. "No," Elon said, his eyes still following a janitor's daughter choosing earrings for her high school graduation. "I'm measuring how people feel when they walk through the door." That evening, as the store prepared to close, Zara gathered the staff in the employee lounge. There were tired eyes and sore feet, but also glowing faces. "We didn't just sell products today," she said, her voice full. "We sold belonging. And for the first time in its storied history, Belir wasn't a place for the few. It was a door wide open for everyone. 6 months had passed since the grand reopening of Bel-Air, and Paris was still talking, but the conversation had changed. It was no longer just about a luxury store or even about Elon Musk's dramatic acquisition. It had become something far deeper, something timeless. The world was beginning to reimagine what it meant to be seen, to be valued, to walk through a door and be greeted not for what you wore, but for who you were. Inside Elon's Paris apartment, May Musk sat curled in a high-backed chair, scrolling through a tablet as sunlight spilled through the floor-to-ceiling windows. Her silver hair shimmered in the glow. She paused, her expression softening. "Elon," she called to her son, who was hunched over a laptop across the room. "Did you see this?" He looked up. "What's that, Mom?" She held out the tablet. Vor in Milan is launching their own community access initiative, modeled after Bel-Air's. They're calling it Grace. A quiet smile played at Elon's lips. "That's 5 this month alone." May shook her head in disbelief. "And all because one doorman made a mistake." "No," Elon replied, closing his laptop. "Because you chose dignity over outrage. That's what made this different." May looked away, thoughtful. "I still wonder what would have happened if I'd yelled that day, demanded to speak to the manager, stormed off. Maybe none of this would have happened." Elon leaned forward. "You walked away with grace, and that was more powerful than 1,000 angry tweets. It reminded me of every time you were turned away when we were kids, every door that closed in your face. I couldn't let this one stay shut." She gave a soft laugh. "Well, you didn't just open it, you tore it off the hinges." Just then, Zara's name flashed across Elon's phone screen. He answered on speaker. "Hey, Zara," Elon said. "Hi, Mr. Musk. Sorry to bother you. I just left a workshop at a fashion school. Students are designing their final projects around ethical luxury now. You should see what they're creating." "That's amazing," Elon said. "How's the Dignity Committee?" "Stronger than ever. We're expanding it to the New York and Dubai locations next month. Oh, and Vincent is flying out to Tokyo. He's training staff at our newest partner store." May raised her eyebrows, impressed. "From gatekeeper to global advocate," she whispered. "I still can't believe his transformation," Zara said. "Yesterday, he sent me a quote. It said, 'The true measure of luxury is how it makes someone feel.' He told me he thinks about that every morning before he puts on his uniform." Elon's voice softened. "I think that quote belongs on our front door." After the call, May returned to her tablet, opening a letter she had bookmarked. Her eyes scanned the screen, and then she read it aloud. "Dear Mrs. Musk, I'm a single father in Ohio. I work nights cleaning office buildings so my kids can have a better future. My daughter just received a Bel-Air scarf from the community collection. She said she's never felt more beautiful. Thank you for reminding the world that people like us matter too." She paused, blinking back tears. "These letters, they mean more than sales figures ever could." Elon nodded. "They're proof that the ripples are still spreading." And they were. Fashion schools were integrating ethics and inclusion into their core curricula. Luxury brands were rethinking marketing strategies. Some critics still called it a gimmick, but for the thousands of teachers, nurses, firefighters, and single parents who now shopped at Bel-Air and similar stores, it wasn't about image. It was about finally being allowed into a space they were always told wasn't for them. The following week, a quiet ceremony marked the 1-year anniversary of Bel-Air's transformation. No red carpets, no fanfare, just a gathering of staff, community members, designers, and customers whose lives had been touched. May was there, of course, now a global icon of elegance and strength. Vincent stood proudly at the entrance, not as a gatekeeper, but as a greeter, his voice warm, his presence genuine. Elon took the stage for a brief announcement. "Today," he said, "we're launching the Dignity Foundation with a $100 million pledge to transform more spaces, not just luxury stores, but schools, shelters, and hospitals, into places where every person is seen. Because this was never just about fashion. It was about worth. The applause was thunderous. And later that evening, as Elon and May walked the now familiar marble halls of Belir together, they stopped at the original entrance where it had all begun. "You know," May said, "I never told you. When I stood here that day and Vincent turned me away, it hurt, not because I wanted to shop, but because I thought I had outgrown that feeling of being unseen, unworthy. Turns out, no one ever truly outgrows it." Elon looked at her gently. "Then maybe we spend our lives making sure fewer people have to feel it." And in that soft silence, with the city of Paris glowing beyond the glass, a mother and son stood hand in hand, knowing that sometimes the most revolutionary thing you can do is simply open a door. In a world obsessed with image, where appearances often speak louder than character, this story reminds us of a timeless truth. Dignity is not a luxury, it's a right. When May Musk was turned away from a store simply for not looking the part, she could have chosen anger. Instead, her quiet strength sparked a revolution. And Elon Musk, a son shaped by her resilience, didn't just respond with power, he responded with purpose. The May Project is more than a retail experiment. It's a movement, one that challenges every institution, whether it's a fashion house, a restaurant, or a boardroom, to ask, who do we exclude and why? In every interaction, every welcome or dismissal, we decide what kind of world we want to live in. So let this story inspire more than admiration. Let it ignite action. Smile at a stranger. Listen before judging. Stand up, even quietly, when someone's dignity is on the line. And if this story moved you, if it stirred something deeper, help us share it. Hit the like button, subscribe for more inspiring stories that challenge the norm, and pass this video along to someone who believes that kindness still matters. Because sometimes the biggest changes start with the smallest moments, like a closed door, a mother's quiet grace, and a son who refused to let the world look away.